What makes someone a photographer? Do you consider yourself a photographer? Or is everybody a photographer these days? Armed with the latest smartphone, almost everyone on the planet is meandering about with a high-quality camera, one capable of capturing stunningly beautiful images. I mean, let's be honest. We've all seen those photographs on Instagram. You know, the ones that blow your hair back, captured by someone with no special schooling or training, no refined aptitude for photography or art, no intent or forethought about any particular subject, someone who just happened to be on vacation, hiking, or simply walking about. Where does that leave those who have acquired thousands of dollars in photography gear, taken classes, spent countless hours studying and perfecting their craft? In reality, what separates old-school photographers with their vintage cameras from today's state-of-the-art smartphone photographers, or as I like to call them, the neo-photographers? Indeed, what separates the traditional photographer from today's neo-photographer isn't the camera, it's the mindset. As I mentioned, there's always a stunning image popping up on Instagram, often taken by someone new to photography, and that's perfectly fine. But the photographs that truly stand the test of time are usually created by a prepared mind, not by chance or a spur-of-the-moment snapshot. Preparedness is the line that separates the neo-photographer from the old-school photographers. Great photographs are rarely accidents. They're the reward for observation, patience, and being prepared when the moment arrives. On that note, some subjects present unique challenges, such as waterfalls. Even the most prepared photographers can struggle to make the composition meet the expectations of the mind's eye. Knowing what not to do is just as important as knowing what to do. As you can imagine, after years spent practicing photography, I've acquired a few tips worth conveying. Indeed, sharing something you're truly passionate about is one of life's little pleasures. One of the most rewarding parts of photography isn't simply making images. It's sharing the journey with others. When we exchange ideas, experiences, and inspiration, we bolster our community, a league of like-minded people who share a passion for a gift that keeps giving year after year. Indeed, when competing with a neo-photographer armed with a smartphone, a bigger, more powerful camera is irrelevant. It's not who has the better gear. What matters is who has the better composition.
Truly, there's just enough water to tease you. Not enough for a great image. So why do it? Well, you can line up the composition. You can see if it's worth coming back. You can get to a location like this without having the burden of all the flowing water through the creek bed. So it makes it easier to get here and kind of scope out the composition and see if it's worth coming back at all. And of course, you never know, you might just get lucky. All right, on to Calypso Falls.
Although I couldn't make an award-winning image, I did come away with a few photographs worth exploring further. More importantly, I learned that Cherokee Falls is absolutely worth returning to when the conditions are right. Effort alone doesn't guarantee success, and even the most experienced old-school photographers have a plan, until nature decides otherwise. Finding a subject that hasn't already been photographed is nearly impossible these days. The more realistic challenge isn't discovering something new, but creating a stronger interpretation, one that reflects your vision. A subject doesn't have to be unique to produce a great photograph. It simply has to be photographed well.
Splashdown Falls. I was going to go to Calypso first, but I passed it and made it this far, so I'll catch Calypso on the way back. Besides, this is looking pretty good. And right now, I think the light is pretty decent. At least it will be. Splashdown Falls. It definitely is promising. I mean, these two trees right here are perfect for a hammock. And there is nothing better than the sound of running water, kicking back and relaxing in a hammock. So I might just do that. So I don't have much of a foreground, but I want the waterfalls off to the left, and I'm going to use this tree right here as as a point of interest. So to kind of bring some balance to the image. And I think that's the best composition. I'd like to see this with a little bit more water, but you know what? I think it's going to make a nice image. I always pay attention to the leaves or anything that can move in the composition from light gusts of wind. And most of the time when you're in a valley like this, if there's a little wind, you can just kind of wait it out and just wait for that right moment when the leaves stop moving. And you know, it just eliminates unnecessary motion blur in your image. In waterfall photography, you don't need a lot of motion or a lot of blur in the water. About a half a second exposure time is about right, maybe even a little less. Because if you go too long, if you go 2 seconds, 3 seconds, then it just makes for a solid blur in the water rather than being able to see the subtle texture in the water. Quick note on the optical viewfinder. You know, if you've been watching my channel for any length of time, you probably know I'm a fan of the optical viewfinder over an electronic viewfinder. I like the LCD on the back of the screen too, though. I like that for using the histogram, and I know a lot of electronic viewfinders have a histogram, but I really like to frame up the composition and really view the composition through the lens. And once I have the composition where I want it, then I might switch to live view, use the histogram, kind of step back and take a look. But I kind of use both, but just not an electronic viewfinder fan. You know, another thing to think about is a circular polarizer. It helps remove glare from the wet surfaces of the rocks, and sometimes that's what you want and sometimes it's not. But when shooting waterfalls, if you use a circular polarizer, especially when waterfalls are not really gushing out like this one, you'll kind of lose some of the water, and it just makes the water look like it's just less water versus having more water. So I think I'd rather have the reflections. But in this particular image, I think it helps bring detail in the water and certainly detail in the rocks and some of the leaves in the trees. You know, I really see a lot of possibilities for this composition. I mean, there's different angles, just vertical, horizontal. You know, that's another thing that I see a lot of photographers, you know, they throw their camera up on the tripod and it's landscape, or with an iPhone, it's always vertical. And you almost never see someone take an iPhone and take a horizontal picture. We just take what's presented to us and run with it. And I would challenge you to explore different aspect ratios, vertical compositions, horizontal. It's just important to not limit yourself, either vertical or horizontal, but experiment and take the composition that works the best. And often it's not till you get back in post-processing and you really look at the image that you find that you're really like one versus the other. You know, years ago, if you wanted some free photography tips, well, you might go to the library and read a couple photography books, but YouTube is an amazing place. I mean, we share everything on YouTube anymore. And I like sharing these tips. These are tips that I've learned. A lot of these I learned on YouTube. But little things that you learn on your travels in landscape photography, I think we should share those with each other. And you know, everybody has a camera now. Everybody's a photographer. In fact, I stopped yesterday to ask about the waterfall or the water flow at Fuzzy Butt Waterfalls, and I told the guy I was a photographer, and he goes, "Oh, me too." He showed me his phone. Humbling. But anyway, he's right. Everyone's a photographer. So for those of us that are very passionate about landscape photography, you know, yeah, we've got a big camera, but I'll be honest with you, an iPhone would take a great picture here too. But we have to plan it out and put ourselves at the right place at the right time to capture the best image, the one that we have in the mind's eye. And I think that's what separates us from the typical smartphone user. Even if the water's not flowing the way I'd like it to flow. But I'll tell you, living in Texas and coming to the Arkansas Ozarks, you know, 6-hour drive. I mean, you know, maybe get off work and drive up here at night and pitch up camp, get up early, get out here and capture a couple images and head home. I mean, is it worth it? Well, in this particular moment, yes. I found the trail, or at least a trail, to Calypso Falls, but it was really steep. And I didn't bring my rope. Shame on me. I didn't think I'd need it. But I think I'll come back one day, but I'll bring some rope. And I'll watch some more YouTube, helpful YouTube videos. I think there's another way in there. It's got to be easier. Yeah, we'll see. Well, that's it. If you're interested in learning more about photography and the great outdoors, you might want to watch this video right here. I'll see you on the trail.